Yes, I can see people are writing in the comment section. Those who are not writing, what's stopping you to do that? Please, we want to know you. Or okay, to start off the meeting, I would like to ask our brother Joel Kenge Tichi to give us a country report representing Kenya.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. You can go ahead and present your report.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Kenya Weekly Report from 8 January 2022 to 15 January 2022. Activities, Kenya having campaign season last week. Last week, we had a Zoom on Saturday, an interactive class session with Nana Hakwas and Sele and Tyrone Wright. Facilitator Lady Yvonne Dushime encouraged moderators to share regular weekly newsletter that was shared, which highlight on our 8 categories: education, health, legal, finance, transportation, beauty, food, accommodation. And members were also reminded to submit their article for publication. Facilitator Howard Ngwenya share link for the class course with Dr. Wright on Pan-African course. Social media account was shared to group, and members were encouraged to follow, like, share, and comment all platforms by moderator Natalia Kanyange, who moderated Kenya. Members and ambassadors were asked to prepare and submit weekly reports. Member and ambassadors was given link to join our co-founder in Instagram. That was yesterday. COVID-19 update in Kenya on 14 January 2022. Cumulative confirmed cases 3,116,700. Total recoveries is 2,080,199. Total deaths 5,482. Accumulative tests 3,156,817. Report by me, Joel Kengetich, ambassador from Kenya. I'm because we are.
I'm because we are. I thank you, Brother Joel Kedichi, for giving us the report representing Kenya. Before you go, I would like you to go ahead and present on behalf of Zimbabwe a report compiled by our beloved sister, Nomalanga.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I am presenting and submitting the report from Zimbabwe report. Zimbabwe I Love Black People reports from 1 to 7 January 2022. Activities. 1. First, in January 2022, we had interactive class session with Nana Hakwa, Sensele, and Dr. Wright. In January, a link shared for members for participants in a Twitter space event on that day, which we organized by our co-founder, Mr. Singler, to highlight on Pan-African agenda. That January, members were encouraged to recommend Black-friendly businesses. On 4th January, regular newsletter was shared, which highlight on our 8 essential categories: e.g. education, health, food, legal, finance, transportation, beauty, accommodation. On 5th January, social media and account was shared to group, and members were encouraged to follow, likes, and comment on platform. 6th January, members and ambassadors were encouraged to attend our online Zoom event, which claimed to build a global network to help and protect Black people from racism and xenophobia. Members and ambassadors was asked to prepare and submit their weekly reports. Zimbabwe COVID-19 update, 7 January 2022. Cumulative confirmed cases, 321, 382. Total recoveries, 19,289. Total deaths is 5,132. Cumulative cases, 41,606,82. A report from Simalanga no longer from Zimbabwe. I am because we are.
I am because thank you, Brother Joe Kendichi, for representing on behalf of Simela Nomalanga from Zimbabwe. On next, we're going to have Lisilo Muhau from Zambia. Mr. Muhau, can you hear me? You can unmute yourself.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you clearly. You can go ahead and present the report on behalf of Zambia.
Okay, thank you very much. As Zambia, we are in the part of Western province of Zambia, where we had a good number of sensitizations, and we progressed very well. A number of people were asking what this movement is all about, but we are able to explain that very soon you will get to know about it. But currently you should love the Black people, should not practice xenophobia and the like. A number of questions were asked as to who are the co-founders and the like, but we told them that very soon everything will be cleared. Our aim is just to distribute the knowledge that a Black person is still cherished by God. It is a God-ordained race. We are in the process of making this movement known in Western Zambia, especially, so that each and everyone can know and understand why they were created by God. So it is still a movement which is still new, which we are still pushing very hard. You can just see that I had prepared the 3 reports, but the one I'm reading right now is the other report which I was supposed to give to Mr. The name is gone. But on the COVID-19, it's the same report. We are now approximately 6 weeks into the 4th wave of COVID-19, and we still continue to record high positivity rate of above 20%. The pattern is clear. Persons requiring hospitalization due to COVID-19 mostly have other underlying conditions like hypertension, diabetes, cancer, tuberculosis, and poorly managed HIV. Regrettably, we observe that over 80% of COVID-19 patients admitted to our hospitals at any given time are not vaccinated against COVID-19. As at 14th January, confirmed cases 2,113, cumulative 293,695. Tests 8,657, cumulative 3,102. Recoveries 3,924, cumulative 267,682. Vaccinated dose 1 as at 24 hours, 19,807, cumulative 624, 364. Fully vaccinated 48,353, cumulative 1,483,235. Booster vaccinated 636, cumulative 6,919. COVID-19 death 2, cumulative 2,814. COVID-19 associated death 8, cumulative 1,030. Total number of deaths 3,843. Thank you very much. We are because you are. I thank you.
Thank you so much. I am because we are. We appreciate you, Brother William Muhau, for standing on behalf of our fellow brothers and sisters in Zambia. On next, I'm going to have Elijah Nyabuti to present on behalf of our sister Anna Karina, all the way from Mozambique. Elijah Nyabuti, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, you can go ahead and present on behalf of our sister Anna Karina, and also Sebastian Mose for Kenya.
Okay, let me start with the report from Kenya. The
All right.
report is dated 8 January 2022 to 15 January 2022. The activities in the group: on Saturday, we had the interactive class session with Nana Kwasenzele and Dr. Tyrene Wright. Members in the group were encouraged to recommend Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses. A regular weekly newsletter was shared to the group. Social media accounts were shared to the group, and members were encouraged to follow, like, share, and comment in all platforms. Members and ambassadors were encouraged to always attend our online event, which aims to protect and help Black people from racism and xenophobia. And on Friday yesterday, members and ambassadors and also the spokesperson were asked to prepare and submit their weekly reports. The COVID-19 update in Kenya is on from 14 January 2022. The cumulative confirmed cases were 316,700. The total recoveries were 280,199. The total deaths were 5,482. The cumulative tests were 3,136,817. The report was compiled and prepared by Sebastian Moses from Kenya. I am because we are. I am Elijah Nyabuti. The report from Mozambique is dated 10th January 2022 to 15th. The country weekly activities in Mozambique, the weekly task was shared to the groups, and members were asked to register to recommend Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses. All social media accounts of fellow Black people were shared to the group, and members were encouraged to follow, like, share, and comment. The community members from different countries were asked to prepare, write, and submit their weekly reports. The COVID-19 update in Mozambique, the report is from 14 January 2022. The track traced test was 6,925,742. The entrance test was 6,925,742. The performed test was 1,176,804. Tested positive were 217,821. Tested negative were 958,983. The cumulative fatalities were 2,117. The recoveries were 179,680. Quarantined were 615. And the report is compiled from the source of the National Institute of Health. The COVID-19 situation in Mozambique is considered stable, yet in the state of alert because the number of the cases are increasing internally, provincial level. The report was prepared by Anna Karina from Mozambique, and I am Elijah Nyabuti from Kenya. I am because we are.
I am because we are. Thank you so much, Brother Elijah Nyabuti, for standing on behalf of our sister Anna Karina and also Sebastian Mose from Kenya and Mozambique. On next, we're going to have Natalie Kanyange. Unfortunately, she's not with us on this call to present on Burundi report. Allow me to go ahead and present on Burundi report on behalf of Natalie Kanyange. Then after the report, we're going to have our guest speaker, whose name is Kiza Paul and is from Uganda. You introduce himself when he is about to give us a speech. Report compiled by Natalie Kanyange from Malawi, Lake People, Burundi. Dated January 8, 2022, week under review. Second quarter of January, 1st, 2022 to 7th, January 2022. Summary of activities. We started our Saturday conference meeting by enjoying our usual spokesperson report on the weekly activities in their respective country groups. Our most edutainment Pan-African class and health class session was delivered by Professor Dr. Tyreen Wright and Queen Mother Nana Akua Senzele, traditional healer and founder of the Path Holistic Wellness Center, LLC. We had an interactive class session with Nana Akua and Dr. Tyreen Wright. Members and ambassadors were asked to enroll for Pan-African class on Zoom meetings. The guests asked their questions of the day. A link was shared for members and ambassadors to participate in Twitter Space Zoom event on that day, which was organized by our co-founder, Sinclair to highlight on our Pan-African agenda for 2022. Members were asked to recommend Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses in our country and community. Regular newsletter was shared, which highlight on our 8 essential categories, which are education, transportation, health, finance, legal, beauty, food, accommodation, and yes, that's all 8 essential categories, whereby members were told to submit their articles for publication. Announcement was made to members to volunteer as ambassadors of Love Black people from different countries. The members and ambassadors were asked to prepare, write, and submit weekly reports. Social media accounts were shared to group members who were encouraged to follow, like, retweet, comment on many platforms so as for Love Black people to grow and help each other in protecting each other. Members and ambassadors were encouraged to attend every Saturday's Zoom meeting, which aims to build a global network to help and protect Black people from racism and xenophobia. It was recommended to invite members and ambassadors to participate in the Zoom conference each Saturday, which ends in the weekend. Members and moderators are asked to submit their reports for every weekend. Ambassadors, members, and moderators gave their weekly reports for each Saturday ending the weekend, but I asked members and ambassadors to send me their reports in vain. She couldn't receive the reports from Burundi. I think that's all from our sister Natalie Kanyange from Burundi. We all encouraged to invite our family, our friends to join us so as our global network to grow and protect Black people from racism and xenophobia. On next, I'm going to allow our guest speaker, Kiza Paul, to present on today's speech regarding the Uganda and xenophobia. And right now it's 6:24 in Uganda. And brother Paul, can you hear me? You can unmute yourself. I've asked you to unmute.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. You can go ahead and introduce yourself as well as present your speech.
My name is Paul Kiza. I'm from Uganda, particularly Kampala, and I'm from the side of Kamocha. Kamocha is the ghetto. Most of the people hope you know where Kamocha is. So Kamocha, we are this side of the village. It's called Village D of Kamocha. It's just the village opposite Acacia Mall. So I'm happy to be part of this platform for this long time. I've been longing, I've been following, but it's my first opportunity to go through so that I'm here with this big platform. I love you so much. I want to take also this opportunity to thank every participant. You know, it's volunteering work, so which most people ignore. Your effort you put in, I really appreciate the articles you write, the messages, whatever you do, the information you share with us. We normally share this information with the in Uganda. When you can check it out on all social media platforms. It's Chapiro Wadala. When you see this massive, when you check on all social media platforms and you put in Chapiro Wadala, you will see most of the youth in Uganda particularly come following our platform of I Love Black People. So thank you for that great work you do. For the presentation today, for the 10 I'm giving, I will utilize them very well. And maybe to share with you right out from our area is recently the police is to start spot road checks for vaccination, which is really taking place. All social media platforms for the news in Uganda. Most of the transport ministers and stakeholders in the industry have come up and have dedicated. It's not asking, requiring, but it's the rule that have passed our country that should be followed. So they are emphasizing vaccination right out from school and then to other places. Also transport in Uganda right now, it's very hard to use any public mean of transport if you have your card either on your phone or you don't have it physically. And for them, the system, they think people will turn up for vaccination, but what happens is most of our colleagues do share cards. These cards they share with you, they have no photos. So when they want to move, they can take a photo of any friend's card and then show to anyone asking them, and then they are able to travel. So the public, a few people have turned up in our area. Most of the youth they share with have their personal reasons as why they didn't want to go for vaccination. So when I share with you this report that they have, this report on social media, this is how it goes. This is what I organized to share with our community of I Love Black People. The traffic police announced that it is soon mounting spot checks on various roads around the country to check for vaccination cards to adhere to the COVID standards operating procedures for drivers, conductors, passengers, other road users. But as our community, I am because we are. The Works and the Transport Minister, that is General Katumba Wamala last week, said traffic police officers have been directed to stop all vehicles and ask for these vaccination cards from the occupants, and that they are free, and that the traffic police officers are free to order everyone in the vehicle out. Oh my God. Yet in our community of I Love Black People, we should be supporting this act because health is very, very important. I will escalate my mains and share with you as to why I think our community should encourage maybe more of our people to adhere to some of these rules. In Kamocha, every time since we are known as the most violent area in Uganda, anything that the government brings out, if you try maybe to resist, you end up in prison. So most of our team, most of the youth in our area are in prison because of the previous campaigns and now the current procedures and rules that have been put, and they are against the vaccination. So in our team, we are trying as so much as we can to sensitize our community, our youth, that we can adhere to this if we want to still access the public services for our government. Because like even now getting a job here, they first ask you if you're vaccinated and where is your vaccination card. So this Works and the Transport Minister, General Katumba Wamala, when he came up with this idea and gave out this order, I encourage our community to support it, because I believe that we should support this act. The strength of our commitment binds us together with love as Black people globally. So it's the same thing of let's spread this love and spread this love to our communities as we continue. And if you check on Google, you check on Facebook, you check on Instagram, the focus news about the updates that we last got on 14th of January 2022 is Uganda, when we received the vaccine, we discovered that almost 4,000 COVID-19 vaccines in Uganda is what was utilized, and the rest of the vaccine went to waste because these vaccines get expired. So a Ugandan doctor received the first injection that was of AstraZeneca vaccine at our main hospital, that is Mulago Referral Hospital in Kampala. That was the first day of the vaccination campaign. Now, Uganda is set to destroy over 4,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccine, which were meant to be utilized in a massive vaccination exercise in H.U.R sub-region. So our government secured 500,000 doses for this modern vaccines to be used. That was in last year, November, December, with the aim of meeting its target of vaccinating 22 million Ugandans, that's above the age of 18. And then also less than a half of this target has been met to date. Unfortunately, 1,000 doses of these vaccines were utilized, leaving out 400,000 doses to go to waste. Like our health minister, that is Jane Ruth Acheng, said to the local media when she reported recently that 279 doses of the unused vaccines, that was AstraZeneca, was expired. So we are finding it so hard that when such news comes out on our social media platforms, it scares the local, it scares like our community to put trust in our government concerning the issue of vaccination. That's why you see that the government is trying so hard now to put it to public transport, that on every like every road check, everyone should show their vaccination card. Because when such news comes out to the public, our public is like stigmatized. They can't go on with this process. Now, like for example, I was making a review. I was making some research that in December, that was 2021, Nigeria destroyed over 1 million expired doses of this AstraZeneca. So when it comes to our community, and it's the same vaccine that is really on every vaccination center, we are finding it so hard to convince our people, our community. When you check on these related stories, where Uganda has tried to get vaccines from other countries, for example, China and USA, these are vaccines. Most people have adhered to go for like to take the vaccine, and the rest of other communities have failed. Yesterday's news, when we shared, this is what happened. When you were on the news, it's now like 4 days when schools were officially opened up. Our schools in Uganda were opened up of the 10th of January, and now students are getting used to the system of the school. But it has been made a routine from the Ministry of Health in Uganda that no student should be allowed in school when is not vaccinated. Also, announcements have been put all over our communities that we should allow in health doctors to enter our houses and make it a mandate for everyone to be vaccinated. So it's really pushing up our community that whether we want it or not, it's like a must that everyone must be vaccinated if we were to have any if you were to access any government public service. So I don't know what is in your country. I don't know what you can maybe share with me before I get off. I don't know if you're also facing the same situation, the same challenge, that it's a mandate in your areas to be vaccinated. I don't know anyone with in your country, if you have maybe the same rules brought out by the government. maybe you can raise your hand and see if it's the same thing applying this side. Is there anyone like in your country where you are or in your area, it's a must, it's a mandate that you should be vaccinated by force, or it's somebody's opinion? Can I share with somebody? Is there anyone? You can unmute and share with me as I conclude my topic, my report. Yes.
Yes,
I'm listening.
iPhone 11, you can unmute yourself if you want to share.
Okay.
All right, let's go. Derry Anton, we have 1 minute to share.
Okay, I can unmute me, then Anthony share.
Okay.
Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. You can go ahead and share. I think you okay, we couldn't hear Derry Anton to share because his network is too low. Anyone who wants to share what's going on in their country, remember, Black people, we are not immune to coronavirus. We should practice safe methods for us to be safe. Or I think there's no one willing to share about situation in their countries, but in Africa, everyone is being encouraged to get vaccinated, and we are not forcing anyone here to get vaccinated. All right. Thank you so much, our brother Kiza Po, and also I know you are the CEO of an uplifting talent in Uganda. Keep on doing the good work for Black people. On next, we're going to have our healthcare lecture from Nana Akua. Nana Akua, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Well, welcome to our healthcare lecture. We are free to continue.
Hello, hello, hello. Good day. Good day, everyone. Thanks for joining us again today. This is the second week in our series of healthcare lectures. So today we will focus on some of the healing modalities: herbal medicine, homeopathic medicine, essential oils, I think superfoods. And so again, the aim of these lectures is to educate you on different, the light from my window is kind of bright, is to educate you on different aspects of healing. I'm a holistic practitioner, have been for 25 years. And, and so I want to just share some of the information that I have learned over the years. And I have some handouts. Thank you all for showing your faces and popping in. I love to see live faces, so I appreciate that. So I'm going to show some different handouts today. I will still talk from the handouts that I share in the group and the ones that I can send if you make that request. But I have some additional handouts, especially on herbs, because I've been an herbalist for so many years. I've collected different handouts, and I think they just demonstrate things a little better than just words on a page. So I want to share that with you today, and just kind of talk about how to use these things. I kind of reflect on each week, and I always want to improve on the information that's provided and how it's delivered. So I'll spend some time today also talking about how to use some things, different ways that you can use herbs especially. So let me just kind of go sort of in reverse so that we come back at the end with the herbs, because I really want to talk about the herbs last. Herbs are my first love. I have been making herbal medicine since about 1997. And so I really love herbs. I think they're wonderful. It's one of God's greatest creations, and it gives us so much healing power through all of these various plants. And so as I share some information, and again, the purpose is to give you information that you need to know that will keep you healthy, that'll keep you strong, that will hopefully allow your body to fight off different diseases and illnesses and different conditions. And so what I want to share first is the information about superfoods. And if I can get to that, I don't know why I can't put that hand up. Handout up. Now I have the other things pulled up, and why I can't pull up the usual handout, I don't know why that's not popping up. So let me just say, herbs are basically different parts. Well, herbs are plants that grow naturally, that have healing powers. We can use different plants to heal our bodies. We can use the stems, we can use the flower, we can use the root. If it's a tree, we can use the bark or the stem or the branch. But basically, there are thousands, or maybe even more. I'm sure I don't have the number in my mind to know how many plants that exist on the planet that can be used for healing. And if I was teaching my regular class, right, we do a test. One of the questions is, what parts of the plant, right, are used for healing? So we know that it could be the flower, it could be the stem, it could be the root, right? Or you could also say the bark, right? And there are also many ways in which we can use plants for medicine. We may use it in an herbal tea infusion. We may use it in capsule form, where usually it's ground up and put inside a capsule. We may use the essence of the flower, where they distill the essence of the flower and use it in the essential oils. We may use it in a liquid extract or tincture form, where you have added the herbs to a liquid solvent or menstruum, like alcohol or vegetable glycerin or even apple cider vinegar, right? And we may take it internally, so there's a process of how to make that. There are ways where we may use it topically in our baths, in our foot baths. We may use it as a compress, where we may make a strong tea or herbal infusion, and then we'll add a cloth into that water mixture, wring it out, and apply it to different parts of our body as a herbal compress. We may use the actual herbs themselves in what we call a poultice, where you take an amount of dried herbs and you maybe add some shea butter or some vegetable glycerin or some solvent to make it into a paste. And if you have a skin rash or a bolus, a boil or a abscess or some kind of skin eruption, and you may apply that herbal mixture or paste onto, the wound and leave it, for some hours, right? Or you may use what we call a vaginal bolus. A bolus is, again, an herbal mixture where you have started with herbs that are usually in powder form, mixing it with some shea butter, cocoa butter, and you make it into a thick paste and you roll it into a formed herbal mixture. A lot of times it's the size of a finger, or, you know, so maybe your pinky finger. And if you have a infection, if you're a woman and you have some vaginal infection, or you just want to cleanse the vaginal tract, you may insert it. So it's sort of like a suppository. So herbal vaginal bolus is sort of like a herbal suppository that you may add into the vagina overnight, and the herbs then dissolve with the heat of the body and draw out any toxins from the vagina. So there are many, many different ways to use herbs. Those are just a few. You may use them to make different bath and beauty products. So certainly you can add herbs into bath salts or salt blends, and then add those to your bath water. You may make herbs into a powder as opposed to like talcum powder or body powders that you may buy from the pharmacy. You can make your own body powder using powdered herbs, essential oils, arrowroot, or cornstarch, and not having to use talc or toxic, you know, powders like that would come in your typical Johnson & Johnson, you know, types of powders. And we know that those things are harmful. That now, at least in the States, they have all kinds of commercials where they cause different cervical cancers and things like that for women who've used them in their private areas. So we know that talc, we know, is toxic also to our babies. It causes respiratory problems. So our children then may develop things like asthma and chronic, you know, bronchial issues. So talc is toxic. So you can actually make your own natural body powder with herbs and essential oils. You can make skin creams and ointments. So there's so many things that you can use herbs for. So I generally kind of skip that part. And again, as I was reflecting, I realized I haven't always talked about I realize I haven't always mentioned the different ways in which we can use these herbs. I just sort of throw it out there and say, these are the herbs that we, you know, times you need to know how to use them. And not everything has to be used internally. So I just wanted to take a moment to go over that and share that. So now, since I cannot pull up what I was going to start with, let's go ahead and start with some herbs. And if Award, you'll allow me to share. Okay, great, thank you. Hopefully you are seeing on the screen healing herbs and spices, your medicine chest in your kitchen, okay? And yes, that's what you're seeing, is that right, Award? Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I found this little handout, and it comes from rawforbeauty.com. And of course, somebody posted it, I think, on Facebook or something some time ago. And I just sort of save it to refer back to it, because I think it's better than just listing you know, a whole list of herbs and explanations for it. So this just kind of helped give us a better demonstration of how we can use different herbs. So these are all what we would consider culinary herbs, cooking herbs, herbs that we may likely have in our kitchens, but know that they have other uses. So oregano, for example, helps soothe stomach muscles. Okay, and let me just say, most cooking herbs have a positive impact on your digestive system. I think that's why intrinsically we use them for cooking, because they can aid in digestion, but they also have all of these other wonderful healing benefits in addition to being useful for aiding the digestion of the body. We also know that oregano is good for boosting the immune system. Some people will use it in the form of oil of oregano, but there are other uses for it as well. But here we're highlighting that it can soothe stomach muscles. And this may be if you have stomach cramps, maybe from something that you've eaten that didn't agree with you, or some kind of digestive problem. This is specifically good for that. Mint, we know, can ease hiccups, right? But we also know that peppermint can do, and there's a whole mint family, of course. So there's apple mint, there's pineapple mint, there's peppermint, spearmint, and all of those things. So we know that peppermint is a good after dinner tea, kind of helps the digestive process, kind of helps evacuate the stomach and move the digestion along. So we, I think, have mentioned that before, and if not, you know, we'll talk more about mint. Ginger, we know that it has anti-nausea properties, so it's good for morning sickness, it's good for indigestion, it's good for just nausea for whatever reason, but ginger is great. We know that ginger is also an anti-inflammatory, so it has some other benefits as well. Fenugreek, this helps flush out harmful toxins from the body, right? So fenugreek is great for that. We also know that fenugreek also soothes the mucous membranes in the intestinal tract, helps remove sinus and bronchial congestion, helps with fevers and headaches. Fennel is good for helping to reduce bad breath and body odor. If you've ever noticed, there are some mouthwashes and toothpaste lines that do carry a line with fennel in it. So fennel is great for that as well. Fennel is also good for your appetite. It kind of normalizes your appetite to where you're not overeating or undereating. It's also good for colic, flatulence, morning sickness, and it has a laxative effect, okay? Clove is an antimicrobial, which means that it has antimicrobial properties, meaning it has antiviral, antibacterial, antiparasitic, antifungal properties. So the disease-causing microorganisms that can exist, clove is the antigen for that. So it will help with any kind of infection caused by any of these microorganisms. A lot of times, clove is used for pain, specifically tooth pain. Clove, a lot of times if people are using it as an antifungal or antiparasitic, they'll include clove, maybe not exclusively. For example, if you're treating parasites, but I would definitely include or my black walnut hull and things like that. Sage is an antiseptic and an antibiotic. So we know that it cleanses, it'll clear away infections, it will clean any kind of microorganisms from the body. Antibiotic usually specifically means anti-bacterial, but usually things that are antibiotic will also kill other microorganisms as well, because we know that sage is also a good antifungal. So if you have dry scalp and you have usually that's a yeast or a fungal condition. We know that a lot of your hair products, your hair shampoos and rinses, your hair foods and hair moisturizers, if you put sage in it, that'll be really good for healing your scalp if you have really bad dandruff as a result of like a fungal or systemic yeast condition. Thyme is excellent for relaxing your respiratory muscles. So if you have any kind of respiratory conditions, if you have a cold or cough, if you're having breathing issues, thyme is excellent for that. You can include it in your cough syrup or in your tea that you might be using to improve your respiration, or include it in your cough syrup. Turmeric is an anti-cancerous herb. It's also an anti-inflammatory, has a lot of other healing properties. I have a separate slide on turmeric, so I won't go much further with that. Basil, it can help relieve gas and soothe stomach upsets. I also use basil in my hair products, so it's really a good cleansing agent for your scalp and your hair as well. Black pepper, it helps relieve indigestion. Since I'm on the hair piece, black pepper oil, the essential oil of black pepper, is also considered a stimulant and is used for hair growth as well. Cayenne, it can stop a heart attack. We know that it's a stimulant, it improves circulation, so it has a lot of benefits as well. It's considered one of those carrier herbs where it kind of helps the productivity of another herb and helps it be more efficient. Cinnamon helps lower blood pressure, among other things. Cinnamon is one of my favorite herbs, not only internally, but I also use it for spiritual purposes. It's a really good uplifting herb. I combine it with frankincense and myrrh if I'm burning incense. So I think it has some really, really good spiritual powers. Dill treats heartburn, colic, and gas. And rosemary is an antioxidant, so it kind of helps relieve the body of what we call free radicals. These agents, these items, these things that get into the body that can cause disorders. It's also great for headaches. It also improves circulation, increases oxygen flow in the brain, so it's good for memory and other things like that. So these are some of the herbs that you will find in your kitchen that will have other effects, healing effects on the body, and not just be good for flavoring your food. Let me see if I can transition to another one without closing out. Nope, maybe I can't. All right, so let me stop the share. So any questions on that so far? I have several of these slides like this. Okay, great. I don't think I do at the moment. So let's move to the next slide. This slide is about painkillers, natural painkillers. Pain is a really big issue for a lot of people. That is what sends us to the doctors and to clinics most frequently. When I do sort of my healing clinics, when I'm traveling in Ghana, that's the #1 issue that always comes up. I have a pain, and it's a pain somewhere, a pain in my stomach, a pain in my leg, a pain, some kind of pain. Pain is a big issue for a lot of people. And of course, it depends on what pain you're talking about, how long you've had the pain. Of course, there's always the need to determine the cause of the pain, right? We don't just treat symptoms. So in a lot of cases, these natural pain relievers can provide some assistance, but of course, we know that in other cases, there may be a need to, dive a little deeper and figure out what's causing it so that we can relieve some other things to address the pain. But just as a point of information, I want you to know some natural remedies for pain relief, because sometimes we can just incorporate these in our diets on a regular basis so that we can reduce the occurrences of pain. And then that can kind of get us to a more stable situation and still go further to address what is really causing the issues. So garlic. Garlic, we know, is a natural pain reliever, most often used in like a garlic ear oil for earaches. This is something I would make. I think I probably still have some from probably 18 years ago. My firstborn, I remember making a batch of garlic oil. And thank God, neither of my children have ever had an ear infection. And in America, that's a very common thing. You have babies, you'd probably be pressed to find a baby that didn't have an ear infection. So I'm thankful that my children never had an ear infection, partly because these natural remedies were used at first indication. And rather than just always running outside, look to try to see what you have naturally that can address some of these issues. So ear oil with garlic is very effective. Cloves, I mentioned earlier, I think, in terms of how it affects toothaches, but also gum inflammation. If you have gingivitis or some other gum issues, this is something you can kind of put in between your cheek, the actual cloves, or you can drop a couple of drops of the essential oil of clove, or ideally you would put it on a cotton ball maybe and then insert it, because ideally we don't use essential oils directly, but when we're talking about something like that, where we do need to numb the pain, this is one of those occasions where you may simply add the clove drops directly on the tooth that is in pain. Apple cider vinegar, great for heartburn, indigestion, weight loss, a couple of issues. But if we're talking about pain, apple cider vinegar can be good for any gastrointestinal pain or discomfort. Ginger is good for muscle pain, but also joint pain. So they have muscle pain here, but we know it's an anti-inflammatory. And so sometimes the pain is around the joints because of inflammation. Ginger is great for that. Turmeric as well, using the two together are an excellent idea. Turmeric here is listed as for chronic pain. So this could be any, kind of pain. Cherries, usually great for gout and other types of arthritis pain, joint pain, headaches. These are excellent for. Peppermint is good for sore muscles. Pineapple is good for stomach pain caused by like bloating and gas, usually from poor food combining that we talked about last week, or just some food that maybe didn't agree with you and you have some sensitivity to. Blueberries is good for pain due to bladder or urinary tract infections. Horseradish is great for sinus pain. If you're having pressure or pain in your sinus cavity or your sinus passages, horseradish is great for that. And then water. We've talked about water. We talked about water last week when we talked about essential nutrients and how water is healing and soothing. Same concept here. Just as a general rule, unless you can't keep the water down because you're having some kind of stomach issue and you can't keep it down, usually water is going to be a good option. Even with COVID, one of the things they're saying is stay hydrated, drink plenty of water. Pretty much in most conditions, that's going to be the case. To try to get as much water as possible in the body or to stay hydrated is always going to be of benefit. The next one, this handout is on herbs that lower blood sugar. So diabetes is a big issue, I think, among the African people, period. Definitely here due to the standard American diet. We always hear a lot of information on it. And as I've said previously, I also say that the standard African diet would be the same because we do consume a lot of starches. And so if blood sugar balance is an issue or concern for you, these are herbs that help to do that. Cinnamon, cloves, rosemary, oregano, sage, curry leaves, garlic, marjoram, cayenne, turmeric, and ginger. These you should be able to find in, say, a capsule formula, or you can certainly find them ground up or grind them in an herbal grinder yourself and combine some of these and encapsulate them yourself. These are all options. You may find, a brand that has some or most of these. You can certainly use them in tea. One thing I will say, if you are addressing an issue, a chronic, serious issue, tea form is not my favorite. A lot of people like teas. A lot of people talk about herbs and automatically think tea. That's not my favorite way of using herbs as medicine. I think you have to drink or consume too much, and that is unrealistic for some people. So if you're drinking teas to heal an issue, you're going to have to drink at least 4 to 6 cups a day. And if you are, an avid tea drinker and you love it, great, that may work for you. But for someone that isn't going to just sort of sit and constantly throughout the day drink tea, a capsule formula or a tincture or extract formula is probably going to be a better bet for you. This handout comes from healthdigest.com. Again, something else that was pulled off of Facebook, I'm sure at some point I saved because I liked how it just demonstrated with the pictures here. But these are herbs that are good for lung cleansing and respiratory support. Lobelia, chaparral, peppermint, osha root, eucalyptus, lungwort, oregano, plantain leaf, and elecampane. These are all herbs that are good for strengthening the lungs, cleansing the lungs, kind of tonifying them after some kind of, you know, dis-ease or some kind of lung related or respiratory illness. Again, same rule of thumb as I mentioned with the ones for lowering the blood sugar, whether you decide to do it in capsule form or tincture form, doing some combination of these are going to be of benefit to you. And the last one I think I'll share, this is a first aid herbal list here. So more so if you're out, you've cut yourself or gotten an insect bite or just, you know, some illness as you're moving about the world. These are herbs that kind of help with common injuries or conditions. Calendula Extract, this is good to have on hand in case you have a cut or a scrape, there's a minor burn or inflamed rash. A lot of times you can apply this topically while taking it internally. And that's sort of the case with a lot of things. You can always add something topically to an actual wound and then also take it internally. Because what we know is when we're healing skin issues like cuts and rashes and burns and bruises, we always heal the skin from the inside out. While we still have to give relief to the flesh or to it topically, we can do both at the same time. Chamomile flowers, this is good for calming an individual down. It's good for indigestion, and it's also good for wound healing and rashes. Fennel seeds is good for indigestion, gas, bloating, and it also increases breast milk if there is a nursing mommy. Ginger root is good for nausea, vomiting, and menstrual cramps, among other things. We've definitely talked about ginger. Lavender is good for stress, anxiety, sleep, minor burns, and cold sores. I mentioned skin creams or ointments earlier, but one of the products that I have been making for years is a lavender balm. It's like a lavender cream or ointment. So you can use whatever base you choose. Whether it's almond oil or olive oil. I've not used it with coconut oil, but any oil you want to use, you do an infusion with putting the lavender flowers inside, and you low temperature cook it, 200-300 degrees in your oven. Let it infuse really well in low heat for about 3 hours, right? And then you strain off the herbs and you add some beeswax or candelilla wax, a little bit of vitamin E oil, some let it cool a little bit and add some essential oil of lavender, and then you bottle it up. And you can then use that, and when it solidifies, you use the cream or the ointment on, you know, your burns, your cuts, your sores. You rub it on your temples or around your neck and chest if you need to relax and just get the aroma of the lavender. But lavender is known to just really help increase the healing process of some skin conditions. So you can apply it topically for that direct healing or just for the aromatherapy of it as well. Lemon balm leaf, this is good for restlessness, irritability, indigestion, and improving or inducing sleep. Marshmallow root is good for mouth and throat sores. A lot of times you will find natural throat drops or throat lozenges that will contain marshmallow root in it. It's also good for heartburn, cough, and indigestion. Oatmeal, if you've ever, you know, I'm from the South, and so a lot of these natural remedies our grandparents, our parents and grandparents did. So an oatmeal bath is a common thing for someone who gets into some poison ivy or something like that. But any kind of itchy rash, even eczema and other forms of dermatitis, a lot of people will use oatmeal to kind of soothe and heal the skin. But oatmeal is also good for anxiety, sleep, and stress, which can also be helpful if you have some kind of itchy rash, right? Peppermint leaf was already mentioned, but again, it's good for nausea, indigestion, gas, and congestion. Red raspberry leaf is an excellent uterine tonic. So anyone who's still in their childbearing years and wish to have children and want to create a good, strong uterus, this is an herb that you would take as a pre-contraceptive. That's not the word, preconception. Prior to conception, you would want to have used and put that into your daily routine, red raspberry. It's also good for pregnancy nausea, and it's also good for diarrhea. Stinging nettle, one of my favorite herbs. This is high in iron, even has some calcium and some other mineral components to it. But this is excellent for seasonal allergies, for hay fever, for sinuses, and all the symptoms that come with that. And it's good for water retention. Usually I'll use stinging nettle in, say, capsule form. I also have some tea. It's a really rich green, so it's a high chlorophyll food, which is how or why it's mineral rich, right? So it kind of has that little slight taste of like a really high mineral rich food, but still on the milder side. It's not a sour or a bitter tea. So if you're likely to do teas, this is still a good option for you as well, that doesn't have a bad taste. So do we? Oh, okay. Yes, I'll try to flash the slides again, Maria. So yes, and if you're in the WhatsApp class, I sent these slides that I'm showing, but I know that not everybody is in the WhatsApp class. So yes, I have no problem. I could probably, I just emailed them to myself so that I can see them here. So I can also, Maria, I can also email it to you if you want. That might be better. Let me put my email down here, because what I'd like you to do is just send me an email asking for the information and I'll forward it to you. Oh Lord, what did I just do? And it's nanaakua1@gmail.com. Okay. And the other information, if I can pull up the slide, that packet of information I can also send, but I'm having a little bit of difficulty with that, so I may not show those slides. You know, I always talk about how I'm not the greatest with technology. I just kind of muddle through it. I am, you know, I'm 50. I know I act like I'm 70 when it comes to this. And sometimes it's just easier to say I don't know how to do it. I have a good girlfriend who's like, that's just user error and you're just resistant to learning some stuff. You can do it, but not today. So I think that I've done all of the herbal slides or information that I'll do. I have to say there are a couple of other herbs that are really some really favorites of mine that I haven't mentioned. So let me say I will mention those. Valerian is another herb that I think is really, really useful. One of my favorites. Valerian is a sedative herb or a nervine herb. So it affects and soothes the nervous system. And so if you are having trouble resting, sleeping, if you're having pain, restlessness, irritability, and there are many nervine and sedative herbs, but I like valerian because it's good for children, it's good for pregnant women, it's good for seniors. So across the age range, across it has all suitability in mind. So if you are a little sickly and have a weaker constitution or whatever, because see, some herbs are more aggressive, they're stimulants, you know, some herbs in certain conditions one may not take. Valerian is one of those that's mild but strong at the same time. So I really like valerian, so I did want to make mention of that. You tea drinkers, you're not gonna want to take this as a tea because it's not very pleasant. It smells kind of funny and it tastes bad. So this one you're gonna want to do in capsule form. However, it's worth it, I promise, right? So I guess you might be saying, if it's that bad, why are you recommending it? It has some wonderful healing abilities. It increases your circulation. It's good for colds, anxiety, fatigue, high blood pressure. insomnia, irritable bowel syndrome, menstrual cramps, muscle cramps, pain, spasm, stress, ulcers. So it's excellent. So that one I hadn't mentioned. I think some of the others that are on my list of favorites that I usually would suggest to build your herbal medicine chest. Some we've mentioned. Echinacea and golden seal is one of probably the most popular combination of herbs that people may know. So they're great together, but they're also great individually. Echinacea is one of those herbs, like it's good internally, but it's also good externally. Echinacea helps increase your white blood cells. So if you have like a insect bite or some other kind of abrasion, if you apply that, I used to make this Echinacea antibiotic salve or cream or ointment, right? And so if you apply it to a cut, it helps increase the healing time, right? Even better so than lavender. We've talked about lavender, but Echinacea really helps, and it helps it specifically by increasing and speeding up the formation of those white blood cells. And so it has anti-inflammatory properties, antiviral properties, boosts the immune system. So it's good for colic, colds, flu, infectious illnesses, and even snake bites. I mentioned insect bites, but even more serious bites, right? And so golden seal, its counterpart, because like I said, you can use them together, but they're effective all on their own, separate and apart, right? So Echinacea also is an antibiotic, right? It cleanses the body, increases the effectiveness of insulin. So people who are insulin resistant and people who have blood sugar issues, golden seal is a good possibility for you. It strengthens the immune system. And it basically helps most of our organs function better, right? So it helps the functioning of the colon, the liver, the pancreas, the spleen, helps the lymphatic and respiratory systems. So golden seal is excellent for a number of issues. It helps with uterine bleeding. It helps reduce blood pressure, stimulates the nervous system. So it has a lot of good benefits. Generally though, the rule for golden seal is you don't want to use it every day consistently. I usually say no more than a week to 7 to 10 days, or a week to 10 days, and then kind of taking a break from it. But these are really good herbs that I had not mentioned before in the previous slides. We know that homeopathics is another form of natural healing. Homeopathics may come from natural plants, but they may also come from natural minerals or even some insect or animal parts. So while they are naturally occurring, they are not all plant-based, okay? So homeopathics is the concept that like cures like. So in a similar situation where it may cause an illness, in the right dosing, in the right time frame, will also heal that particular issue. So some of its remedies, for example, allium sepum is derived from onion. And so it treats conditions like runny nose, watery eyes, your typical cold and flu symptoms, right? But we know that naturally the onion will cause you to have watery eyes, runny nose, things of that nature. So that's just an example of how it works. The like cures like. So if it is made and taken in the right manner, those plants or those substances that can cause the issue can also heal the issue. Homeopathics you usually will find in small pellets or tablets, and you take them what's called sublingually. So you take them under the tongue, you let them dissolve, and they're then absorbed into the bloodstream through the mucous membrane. So the lining of your mouth allows it to get into the bloodstream, as opposed to the herbs that you will swallow down in tea or capsule or liquid extract, and it has to go through the digestive system. Homeopathic remedies are absorbed much quicker into the body because they're highly absorbed through the lining of the mouth and get directly into the bloodstream. Some reasons that some people will choose one or the other is because there's some rules with the homeopathics. Because you're taking it in the mouth, letting it absorb into under the tongue, you have a restriction on what you can eat or when you can eat. So if you're taking homeopathic remedies, You can't be somebody that, you know, keeps a mint in your mouth, or you're always having, you know, a peppermint in your mouth, or a peppermint or mint cough drop. You shouldn't use mint toothpaste. Usually you would use something with like the fennel we mentioned earlier, or the aniseed, or lemon, or some other flavor for your toothpaste, because mint is very overpowering, right? And it disturbs the absorption and the efficacy of homeopathic remedies. Also with homeopathics, you take it away from food. So whereas a lot of times we take herbal remedies with our meals or with food, homeopathics, you do it on what's called a clean mouth. So you can't have brushed your teeth, drank your tea or coffee or juice or whatever. You can't have eaten a meal for at least 30 minutes. So it takes some, you know, preparation and some planning for doing homeopathics. However, homeopathics can be very effective. As an herbalist, when I had children, my first mind was to always use some kind of herbal remedy for whatever childhood illnesses or things they had. My children took to homeopathics better. So you'll find that in some people, their bodies will prefer one or the other. So it's worth knowing about, it's worth having on hand, and it's worth trying, especially if you've tried a number of different herbal remedies, for example, and you're not getting the result that you want. You may need to try homeopathics, okay? So the handout or the packet does have a listing of homeopathic remedies to have on hand, and some of the common illnesses that it addresses. It even has a natural first aid kit with the homeopathic remedies. So just like we did for the herbal first aid kit, there are other homeopathic remedies that also will address cuts and burns and insect bites and things of that nature. And because I can't pull it up at the moment, we're gonna skip that for now. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and I mentioned earlier, but let me just go over a few of these, is essential oils. So as I said earlier, essential oils is basically the process of distilling and drawing or extracting out the oils from certain flowering plants for healing purposes. You may use it for just the aroma of it, because just from the senses and what it creates or what it invokes, it can have healing power. You may use it in your bath. You may use it in your massage oil. And as your body is being massaged, the healing effects of the oils is healing and helping the body. Especially if you have some physical conditions, aches, pains, arthritis, things of that nature. You may use it on your hair and skin and different health and beauty products, like I mentioned earlier. You may use it as a spray mixture. You may put in a spray bottle, some water, and your favorite essential oil, and it be a mister, especially if you're in a place where it's hot. You need to kind of refresh yourself. You need to uplift yourself because you're having a stressful day. You may simply add some of the essential oils that are good for managing stress and anxiety and things like that. One thing that I've done really always, but especially during this pandemic, is I'll also use it in a spray mister, but as a sanitizing spray. So I'll use the isopropyl alcohol in a spray bottle, and then I'll add different essential oils. So I may use some tea tree or some rosemary or clove or lemon, or different essential oils that are known for fighting germs and microorganisms, and use that to spray different areas, to spray my hands, to spray different surfaces, to kill germs and to keep things sanitized. So there are many different ways to use essential oils. And then of course, like I said, the aroma itself, you can certainly use in a diffuser, a little machine. So there are all kinds of little diffusers that you can buy, where you basically add water and then whatever essential oil that you may want to add, and then the mist of that, the mist of that creates the aroma, and it can really be uplifting It can cleanse the air, has a lot of uses and a lot of purposes there. So there are different ways in which to do it. Oh, you can use it in mouthwash, douches, compresses, just like herbs that I mentioned earlier. So essential oils have a lot of uses. Usually if you're using it directly on your skin, of course, you're gonna want to dilute it with what's called a carrier oil, where you are using coconut oil or jojoba oil or apricot or almond or hazelnut or any number of nut or butter or vegetable oils. And then you're adding the essential oils before you apply it to your skin. So these are things that you want to keep in mind in terms of your essential oils. So we've talked about clove oil. Let me mention cinnamon oil. I really like cinnamon. Cinnamon is an antidepressant, an antiviral, antibiotic. It helps with infections, colds, arthritis, rheumatism. We mentioned basil herb a little bit, I think, on the kitchen herb handout, but the essential oil is really great for nervous and mental stimulation. It's good for bronchitis, colds, headaches, coughs, fatigue, sinus issues. So basil can be really, really good in the essential oil as well as the herb itself. Eucalyptus, I prefer peppermint myself, but eucalyptus is similar and some people will take to eucalyptus better. But eucalyptus is a good antiseptic, antibiotic. It's good for muscular aches and pains. It's good for colds, flu, and mental exhaustion. Let's talk a little bit about mental exhaustion. So listen, you know, we're strong people, right? And I encourage you to read this poem by this mama. She's local here in DC. I'm in Baltimore, but she's in DC. Laini Mataka wrote this poem called Being a Strong Black Woman Can Get You Killed, right? And so the essence of it is, you know, sometimes we're so strong and it's to our detriment, right? So we don't have to always, and I definitely shortened that up, but I encourage you to go read it and look it up and read the poem in its entirety. But I always like to point out that we do not have to be Superman. We do not have to be Superwoman. We have to take care of ourselves. And just because we are capable of doing a thing doesn't mean that we have to do that thing. We do not have to be long suffering, right? And so while we may have a lot of physical strength and the ability to withstand, to tolerate something, it doesn't mean that we have to push our bodies or our minds to that extent. So the mental exhaustion piece is very important because we will load and overload some more our minds, things that we're dealing with, that we're wrestling with, we're struggling with, and we just figure, I'm strong, I can take it, I can handle it, I got this. And all of that's good self-talk. I'm not saying speak in the negative, but we have to realize when we are tired, physically and mentally. Okay. And so anything that you see that will address mental exhaustion, mental fatigue, being overwhelmed, all of those things, it is okay to utilize those things. These wonderful herbs, plants, essential oils that God has given us, they are for our use, right? And so for me, one of the best ways to praise God is to use what Mother, Father, God has given us. And so in Part 3, next week, we'll talk specifically about flower remedies, which deal with balancing the emotions. So we'll talk about that mental piece some more, but I really encourage you to not always take on so much and say, I can handle it, and it be to our detriment. We have to always work smart, not hard, not to our detriment, not overburden ourselves. So let me move on. So frankincense, we usually will talk about frankincense in terms of spiritual uses, the frankincense and myrrh. But frankincense is also good for mental fatigue. It's good for arthritis. It's good for aging skin. It's good for respiratory problems, and it can help induce dreaming. Another favorite essential oil of mine is neroli. Neroli is not as popular, maybe not as easy to find, but very beneficial. It's an antidepressant and a sedative. right? So this is a great one to add into your baths or your diffusers, or to use in your massage oils and things, just to get that aroma around. It's good for insomnia, shock, nerves, skin care, scars, PMS, also known to lower blood pressure. Okay, so neroli is one to note, because again, we want to get beyond. I always want to encourage people to get beyond echinacea and golden seal and peppermint and ginger and stuff like that, right? These are herbs and oils that we heard of. Only oils people know about is lavender and peppermint. I want you to know essential oils beyond those. Okay, I want you to know about helichrysum, and I want you to know about juniper and neroli and all of these other essential oils. So it's sandalwood. Sandalwood, some people will use it just as the scent or for the aroma of it. Sandalwood is great for stomach cramps, nausea, depression, herpes, candida, menses, headache. Sandalwood is also good for the skin. I add a little sandalwood to my lavender balm that I just talked about how to make. So sandalwood is very healing, not just for the aroma of it. I am an earthy tone, earthy scents person, but know that these earthy fragrances have really wonderful healing powers as well. And then just to mention another one that is not as popular that I just threw out there, juniper. Juniper is great for fluid retention, rheumatism, urinary and skin problems, and again, mental exhaustion, okay? So use these essential oils to keep our mental state, our minds, our spirits strong and high. So the last part of today's lecture is about superfoods, okay? So superfoods is pretty much what you would imagine it to be by the name. It is a food that is highly concentrated with various nutrients. So these are foods that are packed with different vitamins and minerals. So typically when we say our food shall be our medicine, and we want to use, foods to heal our bodies and to provide our nutrition, and we're not just eating for pleasure, that we're eating to live, and we're eating for strength, and we're eating for health and vitality. These superfoods are the very example of that. These are the foods that you would want to make sure you include in your diets, okay? Things like avocado. Okay, I'm all out of order, it doesn't matter. So I'm gonna just throw these out anyway. And since you can't see my handout, but avocados, salmon, blueberries, flaxseed, cinnamon, sweet potatoes, all of these are some of the almonds, broccoli. These are all some of the foods that are high in a number of vitamins and minerals that you should include into your diet. And then we have these foods that are more so like the berries and seeds and things like that, that people would typically put into like shakes or smoothies or your cereals, salads, dressings, things like that. But things like the acai berry, goji berries, cocoa powder or cacao, seaweed and chia seeds and mangosteen and maca powder. These are all more like nutritional supplements. They're foods, but most people will use them as supplements to add into their smoothies and such. Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate you. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. I've been trying to look to the side and keeping track of it. So there are not a lot of questions. So that's great. So what I want to just suggest that you do, and if you don't have the handout, if you're not in the WhatsApp group and you need the handout that you didn't get to see, but there is a handout that has all that I mentioned. Feel free to email me if you want the slides that were listed earlier. And since we do have time, I will put them back up. I think, I don't know if Maria is still on, but I was asked earlier if I could post or show them just a little bit. So as I'm talking, I'm happy to do that. So this is the one on first aid. But what I suggest is that you start trying to use herbs more frequently. So if it's not in your cooking, then do it in your drinking. Make an iced tea, with different herbs that are beneficial for you. If it is a skincare product, make it herb-based. Make sure it's natural, that it's not some kind of artificial fragrance. Make it a natural fragrance that will be of more benefit to you, that the aroma will have healing benefits in addition to whatever it may do topically for your skin or your body. Or if you are into baths, or you want to soak your feet and things of that nature, make sure you add something that is going to be beneficial to you. Add to it some of the ginger oil, or with your bath salts, add some of the lavender or chamomile essential oils, or something that is going to give you some benefits, something that will heal your mind and your body and your spirit. This is the handout I had posted earlier on the top, painkillers. Again, just running through these. Yeah, I think Maria's still on, but she can email me and get these if she's not getting these right now. This is the one I listed for herbs that lower the blood sugar. But yes, I suggest that if you want to switch over from using, say, ibuprofen or naproxen or acetaminophen, try creating some of the natural medicine chest that you can just make yourself. There's some you can buy, but get some natural pain relievers. Get some herbal digestive aids as opposed to your Tums or some of the antacids that people use. Or get some of the herbal laxatives like your Cascara sagrada or your senna or your slippery elm or your turkey rhubarb or some of these things, rather than your Metamucil or some of these, chemical laxatives that you'll find on the shelf. Get psyllium seed husk naturally, not the Metamucil, because Metamucil has added other things, to the jar. Instead of adding, doing senokite, do the actual senna herb itself. So try doing things in this natural form. And as always, I always want you, you see, I lost my train of thought, Lord have mercy. Okay, that was gone. I lost what I was gonna say. Yeah, okay. Oh, thank you. So, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. So, yes, thank you. So I was just about to say, not giving medical advice, but if I had a condition that I needed to boost my immune system and I needed to strengthen, my respiratory system, and what I have been using for the last couple of years is I made a tincture, an extract with 75% grain alcohol, 25% water, and the following herbs: elderberry, olive leaf, mullein, wild cherry bark, echinacea, golden seal, nettle, and horehound. I know I said a lot, right? Horehound, nettle, echinacea, golden seal, wild cherry bark, echinacea, golden seal, olive leaf, elderberry. These are herbs that I've made an extract with, a tincture, to just keep my immune system up, to strengthen my respiratory system, to strengthen my immune response to anything I may come in contact with. I also on a daily take vitamin C. And if I feel particularly vulnerable as if I feel like I've been exposed to something, I take 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams a day. Okay, not 500 milligrams, not 1,000 milligrams. You take a heightened amount, right? I take 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C. Zinc is excellent for boosting the immune system. Vitamin D3, since most of us, especially here in America, are vitamin D3 deficient, that also helps with your immune system. So I personally take those things every day. Another thing I take and I utilize heavily is a natural antibiotic called Colloidal Silver. Colloidal Silver is ionized silver. It boosts the immune system. I use 500 parts per million. Usually stores like Vitamin Shop and Vitamin World, even GNC, which I never suggest using because they don't specialize in herbs and health products. They do it now because people are into it, but you know, they used to just do bodybuilding stuff. But even if you go there and you find colloidal silver, what you're going to find is 10 parts per million, or at most 50 parts per million, which is what I would give to my baby girl, right? My 5-year-old goddaughter. But for a full-grown person or a person of 150 pounds or more, you need a stronger dose. So I use 500 parts per million. And no, I used to make products for many, many years. I hustled products for many years. I don't make products anymore. I used to, but not anymore. So I think I've reached my time. Hopefully something I've said has been useful and helpful for you today. If you need the handouts or the slides, you can specify. You can specify the packet, or you can specify the handouts or flyers. You can email that to me and I'll send it to you. And as always, thanks for joining us, and I bid you good health and peace.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
Award.
Anakwa.
You're
All
welcome.
right. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, cheers. On next, you're going to have our Pan-African class led by Professor Cider, right?
Yes. Hi, how are you? And you'll see me momentarily. How is everyone doing?
We are good.
Everyone's doing good? Okay. It's still the top of the new year. So we had quite a bit to talk about and learn from this week in terms of readings. It was your first set of readings. You'll see me momentarily, but I'm going to start. Hold on, let me turn my alarm off. Okay. I'm going to start sharing my screen in a second, but as you all know, we had a lot of reading already from the outset, and I hope you all were able to do that. But also too, the film that I spoke of last week was also part of our materials, our visual for this week, which was the film, The Journey of Man, a Genetic Odyssey. So you all are on the other side of that at this point. You should have watched it, and I will hit on just a couple of things with regard to it. Let me see something here. Okay, that mutes me. I don't want to mute myself. All right, so first off, we use the text called Booker T. Washington in Africa, The Making of a Pan-Africanist. And that was a text that I actually am the author of. And I used it for the purpose of basically assigning chapter 2 as the readings. Chapter 2 is Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanist. And I'll flash it on the screen as I get my camera together. Let me just do that real quick so that you can see what we are working with. Okay, so those of you who are not in the group or not actually in the course probably don't have this, but I will go to it. So the chapter is, can I share my screen?
Yes, I can share the screen.
Okay. Okay. All right, so this is the chapter that you were assigned to read. And the reason why I use this particular chapter is because of the simple fact that, not even because I wrote it, but mostly because it is indicative of, and I know for sure because I wrote it, it is indicative of the context that I wanted us to all understand. So for example, if we were to talk about the pandemic, we would have to recreate the context, right? What was going on in 2020? What was happening in the world, right? So that was what this chapter actually does. It recreates that moment in time adequately so that I'm able to discuss and the reader can understand the climate in the world at that moment in time. So that was really the purpose of using something that was authored by myself as opposed to by someone else, simply because I am sure that you would get the context. And what the chapter does is adequately bring home the point that Pan-Africanism, as it's emerging in the world, was not something that was only being expressed by Africans in the Caribbean, or Africans in the United States, or Africans on the continent, or African people in Europe. It was being expressed by African people in a multitude of places, starting probably in a constituted way in the context of the Caribbean. Well, let's say this, the individuals are from the Caribbean, right? So Henry Sylvester Williams is from the Caribbean. He's part of the African Association, and he would be the person who coins the phrase Pan-Africanism, right? And so you see him in this chapter communicating with people, trying to organize the first Pan-African conference. And so I actually reference that. But Pan-Africanism comes to be something that is going to be expressed and embraced by African people the world over, and not just in the Caribbean, in Central or South America, or Europe, or the African continent, right? It would reach its highest form on the African continent. And I think we're going to spend a great amount of time when I get to that on just that. But it actually is not simply expressed in that context. All right. So I'm going to get a little bit more into this. I'm going to let you see me and say hi, but I'm going to get a little more into this specific text and do a textual sort of review of it really briefly. And then from there, if I could get my camera right. And then from there, go into the other related readings, which were a piece from Garvey and also a piece from Du Bois. And I've in the course of teaching this particular course, I have changed this up several times. And now I'm back to doing it the way that I was doing it in the past, which was to put, oh, sorry, I stepped on my cat, which was to put this particular reading in the beginning of the course. Okay. So, sorry guys. Anyway, so that is what we're going to cover. We're going to cover a piece by Garvey, cover a piece by Du Bois, cover this particular item, which is going to really frame much of the conversation. And then talk again about the film. I'm sorry, you guys are hearing my kitten. I stepped on the poor thing. Anyway, so let's get into it. Let me get my camera. So I'm hoping that, well, you don't need to see me at the moment, but you will see me in a second. So let's get into this right here. Basically, the chapter, I took the chapter and I isolated the quote that opens up the chapter. And it's a quote from Booker T. Washington. And for those of you who are from the United States, I'm not going to give a whole lot of conversation about who Booker T. Washington was, this, that, and other, because I don't want to fixate on him. I want to fixate on the condition of African people, of Black people that we want, that Pan-Africanism is trying to address. And that is one of oppression and exploitation. So if you're wondering, like, hey, how does she jump right in and starts talking about Booker T. Washington and using this? No offense, maybe at another time I'll get into the whole Booker T. Washington thing separate from this course, but I'm just going to move ahead on that point, meaning that this is just an entry point. This is just one historical figure. So don't get caught up with the Du Bois and Washington thing, right? So I open up with a quote from Washington, and there is, however, a tie which few white men can understand, which binds the American Negro to the African Negro, which unites the Black man of Brazil and the Black man of Liberia, which is constantly drawing into closer relations all the scattered African peoples, whether they are in the old world or the new. I have rarely met anyone, I have rarely met in America anyone of my race who did not, in one way or another, show a deep interest in everything connected with Africa. The millions of Negroes in America are almost as much interested, for example, in the future of Liberia and Abyssinia as they are in their own country. There is always a peculiar and scarcely definable bond that binds one Black man to another Black man, whether in Africa, Jamaica, Haiti, or the United States. And I wanted to use that quote. I mean, obviously it opens up the chapter, but I think that that is profoundly Pan-Africanist in its statement, okay? It is profoundly Pan-Africanist, and it was written by, yes, an unlikely figure in the context of a book called The Story of the Negro, The Rise of the Race from Slavery. I'm gonna stop my share and get on camera for a second. So it's written by Booker T. Washington, yes, unlikely figure if you're just tuning in. But then at the same time, it is something that encapsulates the Pan-African world in its inclusiveness, saying that there is a scarcely definable bond that binds all of us. What he's talking about particularly is the consistent situation of our oppression and our exploitation, okay? He is very much talking about what we would consider as historians more the modern world, because prior to a certain time, all African people on the African continent are not the same, do not share a racial identity, because race does not exist, right? So that is a statement that he's making at that moment in time. And to me, it is the epitome of a Pan-Africanist statement, because you see how he goes around the African world, whether in the United States, Africa, Jamaica, Haiti, right? And certainly, yes, we have to state Haiti, because Haiti is the only independent African nation, Black nation in the Western Hemisphere, full of nothing but nations that have used enslavement to build themselves, okay? Built on the institution of slavery. And so Haiti is distinct and separate and apart from that, a free African settlement, so to speak. But the point of me highlighting this is to say that, you know, what we're going to learn from this chapter is the definition of Pan-Africanism. And it's, in short, if you read the chapter, the unity of African people for the purpose of eradicating oppression and exploitation. And yes, over time, if you finished up that chapter, you know that I talk about all the others who come after Washington who have a definition of Pan-Africanism, Du Bois, how Garvey will manifest Pan-Africanism, how in the future at this time, because we're talking about the moment in time that we're talking about is 1900 as Pan-Africanism emerges in the world. But later on, you will have Nkrumah emerge, and he will express a form of Pan-Africanism. So it would be different, but all of them are consistent in the sense that it is about the unity of African people, Black people, for one particular purpose, which is to alleviate, to eradicate our oppression and exploitation. It's not an arbitrary concept, okay? So if we all get together to do nothing, that doesn't mean it's Pan-Africanist, right? And so this is one of the dilemmas around Pan-Africanism. A lot of people think that there is no measurable results of Pan-Africanism because it's been reduced to us getting together and not producing anything. That's not Pan-Africanist. When we come together to address our exploitation and oppression in the world as we experience it in all our locales, that's Pan-Africanist. Your house party is not Pan-Africanist just because, you know, your friend is from the continent and this one is from Jamaica and this was from, that's not Pan-Africanist, right? When we come together to put our heads together and strategize around our condition in the world, that's Pan-Africanist. Now, Washington will have a spin on Pan-Africanist where he's talking about independence through industry. Garvey will have a same spin, right? Part of the solution to eradicating our oppression and exploitation would be to have independence through industry. And he seeks to export that to the African continent. Du Bois believes that, yes, not even so much the talented 10th version, but his view of Pan-Africanism is really to have an organizational approach to it. Hence, he initiates, as you see in this chapter, he initiates what? The Pan-African Congresses. And I'm going to get into that because that is an important thing for you to come out of this seminar understanding. Du Bois would be the founder of the Pan-African Congresses, not the conference. He is just a participant and a delegate to the first Pan-African Conference in 1900. Right? He would be the youngest of that first conference that Henry Sylvester Williams and the African Association puts together. However, once that conference is over, he would be the sole survivor of that conference. And he would go on to initiate the Congresses in 1919. Isn't that amazing? Because of those Congresses, which would be continuous, there would be 5. And the most important would probably be the first and the 5th, right? The 5th Pan-African Congress would be held in Manchester, England. And it would be the space where African leadership, right? African leaders, heads of states declare that there has to be a total liberation of the African continent from colonialism, from imperialism. So he creates a think tank, so to speak, that is continuous in nature, right? That becomes the setting for the leadership of Africa to discuss how they're going to eradicate itself of of colonialism, of imperialism, right? What if he had said, hey, I was at a conference in 1900, it sounded like a good thing, and then that's it. Forgot the vision, forgot the mission, right? Du Bois has many, he changes throughout life, right? A lot, and anybody should, right? You live 100 years, I hope you're not the same person at any point in that 100 years. You should be many people, and hopefully progressively improved. However, he does have a Pan-Africanist vision, and it is very important because it is an actionable vision, right? Which leads him to initiate the congresses, okay? And then there's, of course, Garvey. Garvey, totally different. Garvey is saying that we're going to attack this also from the same, in the same vein as Washington, but he brings that out into the world, this idea of independence through industry. He's saying we all, whatever there is to have, all the industries, we should have our own. Make no mistake, if you read the whole chapter, Book 2, Washington, Pan-Africanism, Pan-Africanist, you know that the UNIA is what? Modeled after the Tuskegee model, okay? Garvey tells you, and you know the events that lead up to that, which were the International Conference on the Negro, where Washington invites people from around the African world to come see the 44 industries at Tuskegee. 8 educators come from Jamaica, bring the information back to Garvey, and Garvey initiates something similar and models the UNIA after the Tuskegee model, and sends Washington the booklet and description of the organization that he has created, okay? Now he also acts on an invitation by Washington to come to the United States and see Tuskegee. When Garvey comes to the United States, he's not just coming arbitrarily, he's coming to Tuskegee. That's his first stop. He's coming because he's acting on an invitation. The only problem with that is that Washington died 4 months before he arrives. But even in that, you're going to see much later, there's a case that I have in this book that I wrote about. And pretty much I defined the case. It's probably the first time, not probably, I know it's the first time that the case has ever been pinned, which is the African exclusion measure that Booker T. Washington was involved in. And essentially Washington debunks that measure that would have locked Marcus Garvey out of the United States and many other African people and Black people coming from anywhere in the world. So, you know, but Garvey's Pan-Africanism is an organizational effort, right? He establishes the first and the largest, not the first of this kind, well, not the first Black nationalist or Pan-Africanist organization, but the first to span the world, okay? 47 chapters of the UNIA in the Western Hemisphere in the Americas, and the UNIA present in every dock and port where Black people are in mass. And he does that single-handedly through one thing, because he truly only masters one industry himself, many people notice, and that is the printing press. But he is able to give the presence of the UNIA globally, internationally, through one thing he publishes, which is the Negro World, his paper, okay? This is why Jamaicans in Jamaica will know about Haile Selassie, the coronation of Haile Selassie. They didn't see it on TV. They saw it on the cover of the Negro World with Marcus Garvey's paper. Okay, so that is his form of Pan-Africanism. He actually expresses it, and at the core of it is this belief that Africa is primary, and that Africa is the base of African and Black people, and that Africa is for Africans, and it's all a response to what we know is happening in the world at the time. Which is okay, somehow, all right, I was getting kickback. It's all a response. His organization in many ways is a response to what's happening in the world, right? So Europe has engaged in carving up Africa okay? And as a result, you have colonial presence on the African continent, the French, the British, the Portuguese, the Germans, and yes, the Italians will try it too. They're not as successful. The French and the British are the most successful. The Portuguese are right behind them. The Belgians would take the most important territory on the African continent, being the heart of Africa, the Congo, and it would be owned by an individual called King Leopold. At one time, the United States would be the first to acknowledge ownership by King Leopold of this vast African territory. The audacity, right? Like the audacity. So Garvey is responding to this. He's saying Africa is for African people. World War I, we all should understand that World War I is really, I mean, and there's a lot of things going on in World War I, but I'll give you the short version of what World War I was about. World War I was about the territories in Africa. That is in essence what they are fighting over. European powers are fighting over colonial territories in Africa. Once again, the audacity. Some of them never set foot on the continent, but here you are waging war with each other. And we should note that because we always think that we're the ones to fight each other. No, Europeans fight each other all the time. And when they fight each other, they bring the whole world into war with them and use us to fight their wars on top of that. Okay. There were plenty of Black soldiers, African soldiers in America who fought in World War I. Right? Anybody heard of the Double V campaign amongst Black soldiers in France? Victory abroad and victory at home. Well, they were talking about the victory at home over racism because they would return to the United States and still experience just a vile form of racism. Luckily, though, bringing it back to Garvey, those World War I soldiers who fight in Europe on Europe over for Europeans over territories in Africa would come back to the United States. And you know what organization they would join? They would fill the ranks of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. Yes. This organization would have a specific appeal to soldiers primarily because of its formation, right? But also because of the simple fact that many of them would, I wouldn't even say disgruntled. They were realistic. They come back to a country that is lynching them multiple times a week, okay? At that time, we're talking about post Nadir, early 20th century, so 1900, 1919, all around that period. That being said, the Nadir unparalleled lynchings by whites of Black people. Okay, I addressed that period in here because it coincides with sort of the age of Booker T. Washington. Okay, but we're talking about a period of rampant violence and not so much like we're experiencing now. Same in the sense that Black people are consistently being killed by state sanctioned killings, but also civilians, and civilians are celebrating it. So to return to that environment, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the largest Black nationalist and Pan-Africanist organization to ever exist in the history of the world, it was very appealing to them. Okay, and so Garvey's form of Pan-Africanism is really essentially to build nationhood, to have a Black nation for Black people. And that is his take. And so that means in every area of life, controlling industries, operating industries, having mass organization that span the world. In general, I'm not a member of the UNIA as it stands now, or the ACL, UNIA ACL. However, I know the philosophy because their philosophy is generally that every Black person is a member of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. You just don't know. You just got to activate your membership. And so that's his approach to Pan-Africanists. Pan-Africanism. But all of them at the core have this one objective: to alleviate, to eliminate the oppression and exploitation of African people, particularly by Europeans, in the context of white supremacy and culture and racism. And they weren't using those terms per se at that time, but essentially that's what it was, right? So to go back to my guiding thoughts, so this is my little lecture on just Pan-Africanism itself. Pan-Africanism is not, I'm going back to the beginning, Pan-Africanism is not us just getting together. Pan-Africanism is not, oh, you're from South America, I'm from the United States, you're from the continent, he's from Europe, oh, we had a party. No, that's not what Pan-Africanism is. Pan-Africanism is we came together to strategize and work on our common interest, which is to eradicate our oppression and exploitation as we experience it throughout the world. Now, as this course goes on, one of the things we'll be qualifying over and again is just that, right? So when the course description says that we want to be able to qualify things, those are the kind of questions one should have. Just because somebody has, like, you know, the International African Arts Festival, is that Pan-Africanist? No, not really. It's just a good time amongst Black people and African people. If we give particular attention to our oppression and exploitation as we experience it the world over, then that's Pan-Africanist. Got it? It's not just about the diversity, us representing the diversity that we have as African people. We've always had that. But now we have a very different common interest at this moment in time after our, 300,000 years on this earth and counting. We actually have a common interest in the last 500 years, which has been to destroy white supremacy and culture and racism. We haven't always had that common interest. It hasn't always existed. The people who created white supremacy and culture and racism haven't always existed. We existed before them. We will exist after them too, that's my stuff. But we'll be here when they're gone as well. However, the point is that our focus is always on the common interest and how we take action to satisfy that common interest, right? And this is why, for the critics of Pan-Africanism, it has been consistent in that they're saying, oh, well, what does Pan-Africanism do for me? It doesn't do anything for me. Why? Because most of what people are talking about are not really expressions of Pan-Africanism. If it don't do anything for you, it's probably not Pan-Africanist. If it's not doing something for African people, Black people, it's not Pan-Africanist, right? And later on, Nkrumah would have started. If you read the full chapter on Book 2, Washington Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanist, I talk about all three of them, that none of them were alike. All of them were attacking the issue from different angles. And great, that's what we need to do. We need to be attacking it from every angle. And Nkrumah would later on talk about Pan-Africanism is the unification of African people under scientific socialism. Okay, a very distinct form of societal structure, right? But not all of them, say that. That's okay. The bottom line, though, is unity. The bottom line is in the interest of Black and African people. The bottom line is a consistent commitment to destroying the systems that oppress us. White supremacy, racism, and when we're not acting right, xenophobia, right? Because that's them expressing themselves through us, right? So I'm gonna get into the text. I wanted to sort of just get that out of the way because I think sometimes I teach this, it depends on, I guess, various things, how I approach this. But I always want to make sure that you come away with what is there on the syllabus in terms of understanding the core definition of Pan-Africanism, right? Understanding who Pan-Africanism should benefit, understand the type of action as we get further into Pan-Africanism produces, right? I'll give you another example. In the same book, I'm not using this chapter for the course, but in this same book, there is a case that I talk about. I don't focus on it because it was a horrible situation. But there's a case that I talk about called the Togo Expedition that Tuskegee was involved in. And in the Togo Expedition, you had, the setting was the Togo. You had students from Tuskegee Institute, graduates from Tuskegee Institute who were there to implement a cotton expedition. They were going to basically crossbreed some cotton and produce cotton in the Togo. And it was under the behest of the German colonial regime. Now, there's a white scholar named Zimmerman who actually wrote a book about it called Alabama in Africa. He talks about it as Pan-Africanist because you have the presence of Africans from the United States, African people from the continent in Togo. However, it is not Pan-Africanist. Right? It's not Pan-Africanist. It was under the behest of the German colonial regime. It would be to the benefit of the German colonial regime, utilizing us. What's Pan-Africanist about that? That's us being oppressed and used as tools, right? So you see how things can get skewed. Oh, this was a Pan-Africanist endeavor. It was African people from the United States who were engaged in cotton production in the South. You know, some of the most valued cotton in the world. Even the Pope wanted cotton produced in the Southern United States. And in the setting, the Togo, they're going to, use a Tuskegee method and crossbreeding the cotton, producing a new strand of cotton. No, what does that do? What does that do for African people? Actually, that scenario produced a quite oppressive situation. The Germans were like hungry to impose or create a system of oppression that they would impose on the Togolese people in the context of that expedition. Nothing Pan-Africanist about it. Just because we here together and we both being oppressed, or just because we get together even under our own volition, if the objective is not to eradicate oppression and exploitation, then that's not Pan-Africanist in nature. Right? We need to understand that. Right? It's not. So when people are talking about, when someone says, well, what has Pan-Africanism done for us? If Pan-Africanist hasn't done anything for us, then you should ask the person, are you sure you're talking about a Pan-Africanist endeavor? Because the very nature of a Pan-Africanist endeavor is to come together, unify, which is power, to address our oppression and exploitation. It's not to have a Black party. It's not to have a rent party. It's not to have a dinner party. It's not any of those, okay? And yes, let's be very clear. It's not your sorority. It's not your fraternity. It's not all these other entities whose objective is not to specifically address our oppression and exploitation. Like, that's got to be part of the mission of why we come together. We aren't getting together for any other reason, right? So let's apply it to what we know we're doing here in the context of I Love Black People. I Love Black People's mission is what? Leverage technology for the purpose of what? Eradicating racism, addressing racism, right? Protecting Black people from racism and xenophobia. Yes, that would be Pan-Africanist in nature. It's right there at the top of the list. You don't have to figure it out, okay? If you don't want to eradicate racism, then this is not it for you, right? So the point is that we are sharpening our tools. We need to be able to, in theory, right? So theoretically, hey, we're all coming together. But in practice, what is coming together produce? What are we actually doing in practice, right? That's how we assess, how we assess ideology, right? And is the theory and the practice consistent, right? Are there contradictions? And if there are contradictions between what we said we come together to do and what we actually do, then we've got to attack those contradictions. So, all right, so I'm going to leave it there and go right back into the text. So you got that quote from Booker T. Washington where he's saying that, you know, we've got a common bond, wherever we are. And he highlights pretty much, you know, the diaspora and the African continent. So historically, I want to fortify you with a couple of things because I think it's important for us to know. Malcolm X talks about history being qualified to reward all research because it answers questions, right? It demystifies things for us. And so let's demystify the context in which Pan-Africanism emerges. It's not just Henry Sylvester Williams and the African Association. It is a climate in the world at that moment in time because of what is going on, okay? The Europeans had just made their biggest move. If we were playing chess, they just got on the board, the African continent, and they are attempting to seize it all, okay? That's what's happening in the world, all right? 1884, right? The Conference of Berlin. And so where Europeans come together to agree to carve up Africa, right? And so it is on the minds of African people who stand to suffer from this movement by Europeans to seize territories that are going to feed them, that are going to sustain them. Because yes, Europe had long been and still is unsustainable. Let's be very clear about that. Europeans aren't moving around the world because they're satisfied with, you know, whatever, everything. They are moving around. They come out into the rest of the world because they're seeking territory. They're seeking resources. Europe is very resource poor, right? If something like the potato famine can displace a whole nation of people, being the Irish, what do you think is going on in the rest of Europe? Overpopulation, disease, resource scarcity, okay, all right? And it has to do, yes, it does have to do with geographical location, right? It's not lush, it's not tropical, it's not fruitful, all right? And the population would decimate the oceans and seas around them as a result too. Okay, so largely agriculture, but a cold climate agricultural environment that does not produce what equatorial environments can produce, right? So very different attitude about population, about people, about humanity, and about life, right? Meaning Europeans and the culture that would be produced in that context. So it's in the best interest of African people to come together at this moment in time because it is being gripped by the spread of imperialism in Africa and everywhere, right? That is the point of European presence in the Americas. They're seeking the same thing, territories. If any of you who are students of American history or the history of the Americas, read Howard Zinn, A People's History of the United States. I mean, it is one of the most profound things in terms of an account of how Columbus comes to the small island of Hispaniola and how, yes, from the beginning, his attitude is like, let's murder them. Let's murder them and let's get this land look, it looks like we can produce stuff here. Let's steal what we can steal and just murder them. And yes, I would never backtrack on that because it's written by Columbus's priest of all things, De las Casas. Okay, he documents how they come there to murder the people. Right. So the moment they see the people, they said they're well fed and they're friendly. This is going to be easy. And that same attitude exists in the rest of the world as Europeans come out into Africa to seize territories. Like, oh, okay, we see what we're dealing with here. Okay, conquer the indigenous people, seize the territories. What can this produce for us? Right. So it's not a friendly encounter. You know, those are lies your history professor tells you about the encounters between European and African people and the cultures and those worlds. And so everywhere you could imagine is suffering under this climate of European scarcity as they go all over the place, right? And one of the people who is in tune with this is, of course, Henry Sylvester Williams as a member of the African Association. He's saying to African people, like we've got to get together. And they begin to plan this conference called the First Pan-African Conference in 1900. He writes Booker T. Washington and many others to prepare 3 years before. They're planning that in the year of 1900, they are all going to come together to strategize about how they're going to address this phenomenon in the world, racism and exploitation, but really under the context or in the context of colonialism and imperialism. That is not only on the African continent, but is in the Americas and pretty much everywhere else, right? A common interest. So let me just read just a little bit. I hate to read to people, but this is worth it, just to recreate so that people can understand what was happening with us. So, and I sort of do a roll call in this little portion because it is important for us to know their names, know the people who are coming before us. We should always keep in mind that, like we're talking about this 1900 conference, we are on a continuum. This is a steady march. I mean, and ultimately, you know, we'll see the kind of liberation that we want for ourselves in the world, the kind of respect for our humanity that we must have, not that we need. We're going to have it. But this is important so that you know some of the names of the people who were on the same and similar path. So we're not reinventing the wheel in our study of this struggle, okay? We are fortifying ourselves, so to speak, so that we know that, so now you know you can't get off the path, right? Because there's so many people who are on the path before you, you have to stay the course as well. But I'm gonna get into just the sort of the roll call of the first Pan-African Conference and some of the people who were involved in this idea of Pan-Africanism as it begins to percolate and bud in the world. Okay. All right, so several Pan-African congresses initiated and originally led by Du Bois followed the first Pan-African Conference. The congresses set the tone for the independence struggles that would eventually sweep across the African continent decades later. The philosophy of Pan-Africanism, which was conceptualized primarily by African people residing outside of Africa, would manifest in a multitude of ways, but the objectives revolve around unification in an effort to eradicate oppression. Later, as the Pan-African Congresses progressed, the objectives included unification for the purpose of liberation. Let me just share this too. So let me share. Okay. Okay. Oh, wait, hold on. I passed it. The actual book and the page number on here is different. Okay. All right. So that's what I just read right here, right? For residing outside Africa would manifest in a multitude of ways, but the objective revolved around unification in an effort to eradicate oppression. Later, as the Pan-African Congresses progressed, the objectives included unification for the purpose of liberation. Prior to the first Pan-African Conference, 19th and early 20th century Pan-Africanism in the US was espoused and practiced by individuals like Bishop Henry McNeill Turner, Martin Delaney, Edward Blyden, Henry Highland Garnett, and Alexander Crummell. But as early as 1829, David Walker's appeal reflected on the history of African civilizations and made a connection between those in Africa and Africans scattered abroad. His appeal not only aimed to challenge the institution of slavery, but to educate the masses on African history and culture. Pan-Africanists amongst the African population in the Caribbean included the initiator of the first Pan-African Conference, Henry Sylvester Williams of Trinidad, Marcus Garvey's mentor, J. Robert Love, and Dr. J. Albert Thorne from the Barbados. But decades prior to their emergence, the Haitian Revolution occurred and bolstered Pan-African consciousness in the diaspora as well. Haiti would produce Benito Sylvain and Antenor Furman, both whom met Booker T. Washington in 1897 and attended the first Pan-African Conference in 1900. Out of Haiti came a wing of Pan-Africanists who created literary discourse on diasporic philosophies on Africa. The African population in Haiti produced Jean Prince Mars and Louis Joseph, who repeatedly explained was that Haiti was the embodiment of the irresistible force of a united Africa, meaning an irresistible force of united Africa in the Western Hemisphere, right? Because we had been forced to the Western Hemisphere. Pan-Africanism had a dialectical characteristic to it, which allowed historic events like the Haitian Revolution to produce a response and rise in consciousness amongst African people internationally. Similarly, in 1896, the Ethiopian victory over Italian imperialist forces in the Battle of Ottawa also bolstered the connection between diasporic Africans and those on the continent. The social climate and consciousness of the African diaspora in the Western Hemisphere and throughout the world produced two of the most prolific Pan-Africanists, W.E.B. Du Bois and Marcus Garvey. Each of these men had important relationships and exchanges with Booker T. Washington. Marcus Garvey's relationship with Washington would open the door both literally and figuratively to the first mass organization of the African world through the Universal Negro Improvement Association. However, Washington's relationship with Du Bois would be inconsequential to the progress of Pan-Africanism. The relationship between Washington, the apparent accommodationist, and Du Bois, the Pan-Africanist scholar activist, has shaped African-American social and political history in the US for at least a century. Booker Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Marcus Garvey would all function differently as Pan-Africanists. The methods they employed varied, but like previous Pan-Africanists, they all had one singular objective beyond unity, which was to advance the plight of African people in the face of oppression. Okay, so just to emphasize that point, okay, all of them is essentially what I was saying, express themselves differently as Pan-Africanists, right? And let me just give you context for that, because I always say this to people. People always like to criticize various leadership from the past and people who are engaged in various forms of struggle for how they choose to attack this issue. And let me just flip it for a second. Wouldn't it be nice if white supremacy and culture, racism, only attacked us in one area of life? Wouldn't that be nice? Because if it did only attack us in one area of life, we would have this thing beat like yesterday. But it doesn't. It attacks us and permeates every area of our lives. Education, healthcare, economically, the family, oh, you name it. Spirit, you know, in terms of spirituality and religious ideology, it's right there. Some people right now, I don't want to get started, but some people got white Jesus on their wall right now, right? I'm not mad at you, but I'm just saying that is white supremacy. One white supremacy saying, I'm God. I give you an image of God in my image. The game is over, right? But we are attacked in every area of life. There is no one approach. We must attack it in every aspect, right? So, I mean, if we were just being attacked in the area of education, we sort of have a beat, right? Black women in the United States are the most educated group of women. We almost got this thing beat. But the truth of the matter is, no, we don't have the beat because it is in every area of life. And therefore, our solution is to attack it in every area of life, right? So I'm gonna, let me see. Can I get a time check? Because I don't see the time. I can't see the time. Let me see. Can I get a time check, moderator? Let me see. Let me go to something I can see the time. Hold on. Okay, 12:41. All right. All right, I got it.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so now let me try to get back to my screen. Okay. Yeah, so okay, so I'm gonna stop there. Hopefully you read the text by Du Bois, Garvey. I'll talk a little bit more about it. I'm gonna make it a point to jump into the group and just kind of like maybe even do some voice notes that might be special or especially focused on those two readings. The Journey of Man, a Genetic Odyssey, if you watch the entire thing, the point of that is just to say that we are the parent people, okay? And we should put these terms into context, meaning that we should put these terms like African, put these terms like Black into context. You know, for me, African means human. And for me, the natural characteristic, and I was just watching a documentary on, not a documentary, but a lecture by a professor on YouTube regarding this, about tracing the genetic occurrence of melanin. But she affirmed what I said, which is that melanin is the human jacket. You really don't want to leave home without it. But some people lost their jacket. And that's not our problem. But what we call our jacket, or what our jacket has been called, is Black, right? And this is a natural characteristic for human beings, right? And so it's important that we put it in context, though, right? So when these small group of people emerged, and it was interesting because I was watching this lecture, and she was saying how Kant and Hume were the first two white theorists, European theorists, to start to create this construct of race. But culturally, it's created by the Iberians too. They're the first ones to act on a racialized sort of fervor with the expulsions of the Moors from Spain and the Iberian Peninsula. That being said, so you have the thinking, right? The philosophical rationale for race, and then you have some of the actions that come with it as well, that create a whole racial pathology in the world, right? So they're all in it together, Europeans, in terms of the construction, social construction of race. But we must understand on a scientific level that race is not real. Culture is very real. And that being said, as we move forward in the course, I will definitely address culture and cultural diversity of African people and how we can be from different cultures. We have been together and different for the longest time, okay, on the African continent. It does not mean that we cannot come together in order to struggle with a common interest as we address this young, vile, pathological thing called racism. It is in our best interest to come together to address it, because it is the first time in our history as human beings, the caretakers of the world, that we have had something that has impacted us the world over, right? So the urgency is there because it marginalizes us and it decreases our life chances. So one of the people that we'll be studying that addresses the diversity of African people the world over and on the continent, however, also our necessity to struggle together to address white supremacy and culture, is Emil Cabral, and he's coming up in our next readings. So I will be talking about that because most of the time when I teach this course, a lot of the conversation in here surrounds the idea that we are still experiencing ethnic strife amongst each other. And that is true, right? Hence xenophobia in South Africa, right? We are still experiencing ethnic strife. And how, when we are still experiencing ethnic strife, can we in conflict, can we come together to address white supremacy and culture? That's on all of our heads, but we still got this guy to the left and the right of us that looks like us, but we have a problem with each other. I'm not negating that reality. I'm going to talk about how we strategize around that and how it previously, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel either on how I speak about strategizing around that. Emil Cabral is explicit in discussing how we deal with that, how we deal with our diversity, how we deal with being part of a nation for a first time when we are from different cultures, how we deal with having this common issue in the world, right? That is decreasing our life chances. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to look at the chat real quick. I could go on for hours, to be quite frank with you all, and on this issue. However, we do have a time limit here that I try to respect, but I'm glad I'm last because, you know, I always like go over. And because there's so much to say, right? Thank you so much. This person, who is this? Brian Parks. Thank you, Brian Parks. You wrote so much, I wouldn't dare read it. I guess the group read it. Yes, I agree with everything you're saying. Yes, 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 yes. Brian Parks. I don't know if I can do a Zoom call anytime soon, but let's talk about it more. Your name sounds familiar though. I mean, I know you're part of this group, so I'm just gonna, sorry, I'm just gonna screenshot the information. Okay, so you're on my radar though. In terms of, yes, you want to have more of a conversation, sure. More of a conversation in this context, so to speak. Okay. Okay, hi, Nicole. I don't know what point you wrote that. Like, I was unaware of this. Okay, but thank you. Charlotte, thank you for doing it. I don't read, no, I don't speak French. No, probably with Francais. But I understand you from Guinea. Okay, Ambassador Alpha Umar Jallo from Guinea. Okay. Translate it and send it to me. Oh, do you want my lecture in, okay, I see what you're saying. Actually, I know now. You're saying you want, can you get a copy of my lecture in French? You know, one of the things I might do, because I have a friend, I don't know if she's tuned in now. Maybe we'll start translating the lecture in real time in French for some people. Hello, Alpha. Okay, I see you again there. Okay. Nicole, I thought you were in the course. Okay. Okay, doesn't seem like a lot of comments or anything like that. So I hope you all enjoyed the lecture. And you'll see the readings up Monday night. Usually it's generally when they go up. And I know the people who are, so we have just a few people in the Zoom, but then the masses are usually like on Facebook and the other platforms watching this. So the readings, and I don't know how, you know, if you're not in the course and you're watching this, because we're like in multiple spaces at the same time, only the people who are in the actual course get the reading materials. So that would encourage you to sign up with I Love Black People and take our course in Pan-Africanism. So you can see more than the lectures, you actually get the reading materials. And for those of you who are in the course, make sure that you stockpile the information somewhere, because most of the things, the readings that I give you are not things you're going to just get for free elsewhere. I mean, you have to buy the book or buy this or buy that, you know, and it's a, you know, it's a body of work basically that you get in the context of this course. So keep that in mind. Keep it in one place so that you can, you know, benefit from it in the future. And let me see, somebody wrote two things after I got out of the chat. You're very welcome, Claudie. Yes, Daniel. Yes, exactly. So some of what we don't understand about Pan-Africanism is the fact that the word itself in general, the concept itself means unity. And so there is work for us to do in unifying. Some of us believe the world over that our job is just to fight other people. And then some of us know that our job is waging struggle within so that we can be unified. And what I mean by struggle is working through those contradictions, right? Working through those contradictions between what we think and how we behave, so that we can forge unity, right? So we spend a lot of time, most of us, particularly those of us out here in the Western Hemisphere, we spend almost all of our time proving to other people that we're not what they think or what they say. And we spend almost no time eradicating or destroying the propaganda and the notions and the lies that we've been told to us about each other that keeps us apart. We don't spend any time destroying that stuff, right? But we spend all our time trying to prove to the same people who created stereotypes about us that those stereotypes aren't true, right? So other folks, we're focused on them. We need to be focused on each other and destroying the lies that have been told to us about each other, right? We've got to get to know each other again. And we've got to start to do some real, you know, real personal, retrospective type of thinking in terms or introspective type of thinking in terms of the views that we harbor about each other. Because we do, right? We right next to each other and we harbor some very ugly views about each other. And that's part of some of our issues, right? Sometimes, sometimes we actually think that we deserve the suffering that we have in the world as a result of believing white supremacy and culture. Listen, some of the most vile things that I've heard about Black people have come from Black people. But we've got to understand how ideology works, right? I'm going to leave you with this thing that Kwame Ture said. Stokely Carmichael, aka Stokely Carmichael. He is the ideological father of the organization that I come from, called the All African People Revolutionary Party. And he talked about our consciousness around what we say and do, right? And how we get to the point of working together. And this is it. So he says the job of the conscious is not to make the unconscious conscious. The job of the conscious is to make the unconscious conscious, aware of their unconscious behavior. So why am I thinking that about my brother right next to me? Why am I doing this? Who does this serve? Whose interest does this serve, right? Asking those questions about all the things we already presently do. Not imposing our consciousness on someone else, but examining our own consciousness and encouraging those around us to examine their consciousness as it is expressed in their behavior. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you saying what you're saying? Why are you espousing what you're espousing? Did someone teach you that? Did that thought originate with you about your brother? Right? Where do these ideas about our ideas about each other come from? Right? Most of our problem is that we are living out another people's culture, sometimes in our own houses, whether that's on the African continent or in the diaspora. And we never stop to think about that. So I'm going to leave you with that quote by Kwame Ture, aka Stokely Carmichael. And I'm going to put the readings up for this week on Monday. And I'm going to do a couple of voice notes. I'll probably even do them before the weekend is out because I have a hard time doing them. So I'm just going to try to make sure that I do it before the weekend is out, which will just be sort of like a commentary on the film, The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey, and a commentary on just both documents, Garvey and Du Bois, which won't be really that a whole heap of anything. It just be certain points that I think you should have noticed in reading them both, okay? I'm gonna leave it there. I think I have one more comment. Okay, thank you. Daniel Bronze Elo. I don't know if I said your name right, but okay. Thank you, Claudie. Okay, so everyone have a safe week. I am because we are. Peace.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tiding Wright, for a wonderful lecture. We appreciate you. I appreciate everyone who was with us and also who were participating. Thank you. We appreciate all of you. Enjoy
on all the platforms.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay,
I am because we are.
Bye-bye.